Hi, I'm Amanda Skelton, an independent Stampin' Up demonstrator. Today I'd like to show you this lantern. So you can see here it's got a little battery operated tea light inside, and then you can see here it's got the pretty details. So this is using vellum and cardstock, and then we're going to heat emboss the detail on the sides. So I've done this with a bit of darkness with the curtains closed, but it probably doesn't still do it justice really. The thumbnail for the video tutorial will show it up better. So let me open the curtains again. And then we can see what we're doing. Okay, so yes, important to note, don't ever put a naked flame in anything that's paper based. Use the battery operated ones, which you can get easy enough. So I've done this with white embossing powder and Night of Navy cardstock, but I'm going to use a different colourway. Today we're going to use the Merry Merlot, and I'm going to use gold embossing powder. Okay, so how tall is this? So this is about 2¼ inch square, and it stands about 6¼ inches high once you've got it all together. So what will we need? So we'll need the vellum. Let me just grab my sizes. So we need a piece of vellum. So this comes in packs of 20 sheets of A4 size, so I need to cut this down. And this needs to be 9 3/8 of an inch by 6½ inches, and we're just going to score that at ½ an inch from one edge, and then we're going to score it across at 2 1/4, 4½ inches, 6 3/4 inches, and then 9 inches. When you score this, please be careful. If you put too much pressure on, it just rips the vellum. So just apply a light amount of pressure, see if that's enough to score it, and if it is, then that should be good to go. If you go too much, it will just completely rip it apart, which I found out on my first test piece. Okay, and then you need some coloured card. You could also use coloured foil cards like silver and gold, which is quite nice for Christmas as well. But like I said, I'm using the Merry Merlot. So you need a piece for the base, and that is going to measure 9 3/8 of an inch by 1½ inch. And you're going to score down 1 inch on the short edge, and along the long edge you're going to score at 2 1/4 inches, 4½ inches, 6 3/4 inches, and 9 inches, the same as the vellum. And then we're going to have a piece for the top, sort of the lid. Again, that is going to measure. You're going to score that and cut that at 1 3/4 of an inch by 9 3/8 of an inch, and you're going to score that at 5/8 of an inch up from one edge, and then you're going to score across at 2 1/4 inches, 4½ inches, 6 3/4 of an inch, and 9 1/8 of an inch. And then what you want to do then, I don't know if you can see it on there, you then want to go from the longest gap where you've got the biggest measurement, and you want to do it just about another 1/8 of an inch over again from your original score mark. You don't need to do it on the very last piece, and this is just going to give you that bit of give here, because this needs to obviously go around the outside of this, so it needs to be bigger. And if you see that the score lines are exactly the same as the score lines for the vellum, so by giving it that little bit of an extra, that double, it just means it will give it a bit of an edge. It will curve around a bit. And then I've got a piece of 2 1/4 inch by 2 1/4 inch, and that is going to be the base to put inside the bottom that your tea light will sit on top of. Okay, so I've scored all of these pieces. So what we'll do is we'll start with the base. So of your two pieces, your base is going to be the narrower of the two. Okay, so I don't know if you can see the detail here. So I've done this detail with what's it called? is it label every day? I can't remember what it's called now. I don't think it says on here, does it? But this is a current label punch anyway, and basically I'm going to use this detail here to basically cut out this, and it makes it quite a nice ornate sort of set of legs. You could use, if you've got any other details, sort of like a tag topper, those sorts of punches are really good. Another option is that if you've got a die, so you could do an oval die or a circle die or a square die, and you could just cut out an edge here, or you could just leave it solid if you haven't got something to decorate it with. Okay, so basically you want to fold all of your score lines. Okay, so the narrow edge, or the narrow section that is on the score line, is going to be the top edge, and this is going to be the bottom edge. So this isn't going to be what you want to cut out of. Now, because this die, sorry, this punch, the detail that I want is actually on the edge. So normally you'd cut from the top, and that's fine, because then you'd be able to push it in as far as you want. But because you're going to use the edge, there's only so far you can put your piece of card. So start with the edge that doesn't have that little tab fold over. Start with that edge, okay? And you can see how far it goes in, and you want to just try and get it so you can put it in as far as you want, if you want like little legs at the sides as well. So just try and judge it so that it's straight and about halfway centered. So I think that looks about right. Oop. Then we get that. Okay, so that gets your detail. Now what you can do is, if you fold it, have I done this the right way? You could do it the other side if you like. So then you can use that as a template. Again, it'll only go in so far, so by folding that piece up, if you did it that way, you wouldn't be able to get to that section. So by folding it up, you can also use that as a template to then get it in place with your first die cut, which looks about there. Oh, it doesn't look very straight, does it? Okay, and then you can fold up again, and again you can make your punch line up. And then you have your last section. Oops. Okay, so there we have our detail for the bottom. So it doesn't matter really if some go further up than others, because your piece of card here is always going to be the same height, so it'll sit flat, it won't go wonky. Okay, so we finish with the punch. Okay, so now we can fold our top score line, and this is going to be a bit like making a box. So you've got your square here, the small square that you can get rid of. Okay, and then you can just create your V's that go into these. It just means that the edges go nice and flat when you put the edges together. And you can just snip off the edge bit as well there. Okay, so there you have your box and then your little tab. Okay, so what we can do is use our double-sided tearing tape. Tearing tape? It is tearing tape, isn't it? Questioning myself then. So on the outside of the tab, because that's going to go on the inside, we're just going to put a piece there. And then what I'll probably do is take the opposite sides and put those over. So I'm just going to put a piece of tape on each of those. You don't have to use tearing tape if you want to. If you want to use Tombow, the liquid glue, you can do. The good thing about that is then that you can move it if you need to adjust it, because you'll need to make sure that it's a nice square base and that it's not all lopsided. Okay, so we're going to do it like that. So I'm going to take that piece off first and get that edge in there nice and square. Okay, and now I can take the top sections off. Just make sure the tape is nice and fastened. That one isn't. Why does it never come off when you want it to? Right, final piece. Okay, so you want to try and make sure that it's as square as you can. So if you've got grid paper like this, you can use this to try and guide it to make sure it's as straight as you can. Okay, so let's see how good I got that then. Actually, that's not bad. You can turn it upside down, you can see that you've got it square. Then you can just push your tape in the corners. So that's your base, which is quite cute, isn't it? Okay, we'll put that aside. So now we'll work on the actual lantern section itself. So what we're going to need for this is some versamark embossing stamp pad. And we want some gold embossing powder, and we're also going to get a spare piece of paper to go under your project, and it's really helpful if you fold it in half, because that's how you're going to get your used powder back into your pot afterwards. Okay, and then we're going to have our stamps. So I'm going to use the big dove image, and I don't know if you can see here, I've used the baubles around the top as like a lantern of baubles, and then I've also used the sprig as the other detail. Now what you want to make sure is when you're stamping the versamark for your baubles, if you want to have them hanging down, you need to allow for how far the lid is going to come down. Now this lid is bigger than this lid because again I messed up my calculations. So if you can see how far, actually if you do it on here, if you can see how far, so then the smaller edge is going to go at the back and the wider edge is going to come at the front. And in fact we are going to, well, I'm going to add some detail to this. So you can just do it square like this. I'm going to use a die in a minute to make this more detailed as a prettier top. So you just need to take that into account, and if you want to, you can just measure. So what have we got there? It's probably about 1 inch. Yeah, just about 1 inch. So when you can, if you want to, if you add your vellum to a piece of grid paper, you can see exactly where 1 inch is. So you know that if that's going to come down 1 inch, you're not going to see any detail above there. So that's where you want to start your lanterns coming down. Okay. So what you also need is a heat gun. So they're not particularly expensive to buy. Stampin' Up do a really good one. So we're going to use this. Now, I was always scared of doing heat embossing on vellum because I just assumed that the vellum would melt or crinkle or distort quite a lot. In fact, I think it distorts less than card. So I've finally got over that fear and actually finally decided to have a go. The other thing that you can use is what's called embossing buddy. It's almost like it's got chalk or powder inside, but what it does is it gets rid of any particles that are on top of your vellum, and it gets rid of any static. So you just want to give it a really good push around, and then that just helps you to not have lots of stray bits of powder. Okay, the other thing you need to do is this section here is going to be the back, the join. So you want to be that to be at the back. So that's going to be a side, that's going to be the front, that's going to be the side, and that's going to be the back. So this is going to be your main. So the second section over from your narrow scored mark, that is going to be your front panel. So that might be where you want your main detail to be. It depends if you're just doing you know, lots of random patterns or not. So in fact, I'll tell you what I'm going to do for the stamping. Let me put a darker colour underneath because you can probably see, you can see the score marks better there. Okay, so that'll help you to guide. Now you're going to have to worry about where your inch is, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to do an inch from there, and I'm going to just do that. I'm just going to put a very faint line along, so I know roughly where my top edge is going to come down to, so I know where I want to stamp. So this is your small edge. Second pane across is going to be your main panel, your front panel. So ink up your image with the versamark, and I'm going to sort of have it going across both sections there. Okay, and you can see the detail on there. And then I'm going to use the sprig of greenery. I'm going to put one on there, one on there, one on there, and then I'm going to use a little bauble, and this is where I want to make sure I keep. So I'm just going to have it just about on that line. There you go, and you can often see the sort of like the stickiness. If you're going to do different colours, and you could easily do different colours on this, always do one colour at a time. So ink the images that you want in the first colour, put your powder on, heat emboss it, and then do your second colour. Okay, so you can be quite generous with this. You're going to have it back again in your pot when we put it on our card. Right, so let me get rid of this card because that's not what I want for the leftovers. Right, I've obviously touched that quite a lot, so what you can do is use a brush. So if you can see, you've got extra detail on there. You can just brush it off. You've just got to be careful that you don't end up brushing on your stamped image. You can see I've got my fingerprints on there, look. I'm using using the brush just helps to loosen the powder. Right, how's that looking? Okay, that's not bad. So we'll just put that to the side for the minute. Fold up your piece of paper and get your pot. And then you can just put it back into your pot, and that you'll be surprised at how little you've used. Goes a long way, does the embossing powder. Okay, so now heat up your gun. Okay, get it nice and warm. And then you can just gently apply it and you'll see it change colour. See it going darker. See how dark that is, and you see the shine on it. So just gently work down the image, making sure you've got it all. You can see it changing, going glossy, going darker. And if you're not sure, if you just turn it to the side, you can see where it's shiny. Well, that's quite a good way of showing it, look. Okay, make sure you put your heat tool somewhere that it can cool down nicely. Okay, so there you can see the images, which come out quite nice. Powder everywhere now. Right, so I'm just going to let that cool down a bit. It has distorted a little bit, but by the time we put it on the base and by the time we put the lid on it as well, it will come good. So don't panic about it too much. Okay, so I'll just let that cool down and dry. And what we can do while we're doing that is we can do our topper. Right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to use, what have we got here? Ornate border dies, and I'm going to use this pattern, and I'm going to use that so I've got a nice scalloped edge. So again, the small section that you've scored is going to be the inside, so the bigger section is what we're going to cut into to make a pattern. Okay, so I'm just going to put that to the side. Let's get our cut and emboss machine. Okay, so this is the edge I want, and I'm going to do it quite close to the bottom edge because I am conscious that I did do those images quite close to that 1 inch mark, and the secret will be trying to get it on here. There you go, and if you just move the glass a bit, it helps you to see how that's moving, which is probably about right there. Okay, I have to do it in 2 sections because the piece of card is longer than the die, but that will be okay. Let's just take that all the way out, and then I don't know why I work from left to right, it's funny, isn't it? And then let's get rid of these bits again, otherwise you'll end up with imprints. Oh, didn't do a good job of that. And then I'm just going to, again, make sure you're flat in there. And I'm just going to, it's almost easier to adjust it actually once it's, go, I've never actually tried to adjust it before once it's under there. So I think that looks about right. Okay, so there, I've just about managed to, he's got a couple of dots there that are missing, but that should be okay. Okay, finished with that one. What you could do actually, if you wanted to get that more accurate, is just lay the dies more so that it goes over where you've already cut. Right, there's lots of little holes in there, paper in there, but I'll sort that out later. Okay, so that gives me a nice detail that's going to go over. Okay. So what I'm actually going to do, because I can see, if you think that your detail is not going to be far enough down, I'm just going to take a little bit off the top edge, and that just means that it will definitely look like the baubles are coming down. So you don't have to take much off, just I don't know, 1/8, 2/8, something like that. And because the embossing is dried, you're fine to put that under there. So now hopefully that will just show that will, yeah, I'm happy with that because that edge will go over the top. Okay, so what we want to do first then is build the lantern. So we want to, first of all, where you've got the small edge, and if you want to, you can get rid of the pencil mark. I was just wondering then whether the pencil mark would actually come off of vellum, but it does, just the same as it would with card, which is good. But you probably won't see it under the card anyway, but it's just nice to know that that's all clean. So just turning it over, and I'm going to fold away from the score line. Okay, and then I'm going to snip that corner off like we did with the base, and then just snip up each of the lines. So the idea being, I've folded it away so that you've got the shiny sections on the outside. Okay, and then you want to fold up your score lines here. It can be quite difficult to see where your score lines are actually. Okay, and then find your next score line. So it might be me that I'm being a bit too delicate and not doing a very strong score line, but I think I would rather that than completely pierce your card, your vellum, because once that's done it's no good at all. Okay, so then we are going to pull that one out a bit. So then we're going to tape it all up. So we're going to use the tear and tape again. What we can do is just take the little wedges out. Again, just helps it to fold in nicely. Right, so that's going to be your inside edge. see the tape through the vellum slightly, but it will be at the back. Okay, and then you want to do you want to do that? Yes. So you just want some small sections to put on the corners. Again, I'm going to have 2 pieces going over and 2 pieces going under. So you have 2 bits of glue on 2 of the panels. So those are going to be the underneath pieces, and that's going to be the over piece. So that's just going to help to keep it in place. Right, so now to make your vellum into a lantern. So this is easier said than done. As you can see, it sticks every opportunity. It will come apart there gently. Okay, so I suggest you start at the top. Get that nice and straight. And then use bone folder to go inside and just press down that. Like I said, you can see it, but it's not too bad. And if you do a nice line there. Okay. So now we'll do the base. And again, it's about trying to keep it square and keep all the corners true. So again, I want to push those sides down, get it so it looks like it's square. You can just get your fingers in to the corners. Okay, and then that is the same size as the base. Put some tape on the base. Put it quite close to the edge if you can, because that's where you're going to see the edges go to each other. Again, take your pieces of protection film off. Okay, so don't forget, so that's where my join is, so I'm going to have that, I'm going to make that my back left, and I'm going to have that as my front. So you want to then make sure you put this on nice and centrally to your base, which didn't do very well at that attempt. If you put your fingers in the corner and then just try and guide, and then you can feel where the corners of the base are, then you can just about get it. And again, use your bone folder, or if you can, get your fingers in. Okay, so that is the front. Okay, so now at the moment it looks all a bit skew-whiff, but by the time you've put the top lid on, it will actually make it sturdy, and it'll bring your shape back again. So if you can see inside, it looks a bit messy. So what you can do is put a piece of card inside. You can stick it down if you want to. I haven't stuck it down there, but you can stick it down if you want to. But that again brings back the shape. Okay, so now we've got the lid. So we want to fold the score line, and again we want to snip that corner out. And then we can cut in your triangles. Okay, and then you can fold the other score lines. Go. Now, when I did this on the first one, I made a right mess of it. When I put it on dry, it fitted really nice and snugly, but when I actually put it on with the glue, as you can see there, it doesn't quite join properly, because when I did this piece, it's too far over. I don't know if you can see that, but once it's stuck, it's stuck. So I do recommend you use Tombow on this one. So what I did was, so again, find your front. So I've got all my joins at the back here. Actually got one there and one here. So that is going to be my join, back left. So what you can do is just to make sure that it all fits nicely how you want it to. Basically put all the edges over, so you can see how it's going to fit, which fits really nicely and it keeps it nice and sturdy. Okay, so what I'm going to do is, and then you can start folding it to make sure it sits straight. So I'm going to glue, so you can see I've made it the right height so that you can just see the details coming down. Right, I'm going to glue the inside of the vellum. And I'm going to glue the front of the vellum. You don't have to go down too far. Doesn't matter if it's not stuck at the bottom. Right, have I done that one? Yeah, so I've done all four. Right, so again, make sure you've got your front. That is going to be my back left corner. And by using the wet glue, it gives you manoeuvrability. And then you just want to, when you get to your corner, you just want to put a bit of glue on there. Okay, now, my trusted friend. I'm going to use a few pegs. I'm going to just move that one up a little bit so that I can get a nice adhesion where, so that's where my join is. I'm going to get right nice and close in there so that holds that nicely. Do one there, as many pegs as you've got basically. I think I had enough for 2 per section. So that's my little tip. I don't know if you can see, even just with the pegs on, you can see how nice and straight it is holding it. So I don't know if you can see there, my insert I think is slightly too big for my base. You can always cut it down a bit so it sits and falls, sits in there nicely without it coming up at the ends. Okay, and then once it's all adhered, you can put your tea light in. So this glue doesn't normally take that long. I'm going to leave the piece on with the join. Actually, I don't really need to. It's already stuck. Just got a tiny bit there that needs to be snipped off. And actually that sits quite nice and flush and true. So if you can see that, sits actually nice. It just gives it that bit of weight and sturdiness at the top to keep the whole thing true. So you just need to make sure that when you create your base and your base and your vellum, that you make sure that the sections in here that you create are nice and square, and that will help you a lot. And then you can just put your votive in. Oh, come on. Try again. Ah, yes, silly thing. Now, you get the idea. Oh, I'm not going to fight with it anymore. Anyway, there you have it. So you could have any detail you wanted along here, but I think that's quite a pretty Christmas idea, or Halloween would be quite nice. Good for grandkids because it's got a battery operated light in it, and you can do any design you want. It doesn't have to be for Christmas, like I said, it can be for any occasion. So I hope you've enjoyed making that. Hopefully it'll help you to experiment with vellum, which I think is quite an underrated product. I think I'm going to use it a bit more now, and I'm going to do some cards with vellum fronts on it. So watch out for those YouTube videos coming up. Hope you've enjoyed it. Like I said, if you enjoy the products, you can find them at amandascraftedcards.stampinup.net. And I've been Amanda Skelton, and it's been lovely to have you along and to show you this nice lantern. Take care. Thanks.